Last time, General Krell had taken over command of Anakin's forces, but what should be clear by now is that there is either some complex plot in place so bizarre that it has him acting this way, or there is something actually wrong with him. While a Jedi might look with disdain on clones as a personal choice, nevertheless, such disregard as to imply battlefield execution for Five's behavior, combined with his entire hopeless strategy, shows a disregard for life that is anathema to their ways. The problem is, who do you go over the head of a Jedi and a general too, especially one who is famous for his success? Today's episode is more the same. The Umbarans have all the advantages: knowledge of the terrain, defending their own territory, air superiority, hostile native creatures, and most damning, not having General Krell's leadership. Now, his technique admittedly would have been fine if this was 18th century Europe and they had a drummer, but it has only succeeded in getting them killed. So Obi-Wan points out the air base that is resupplying the capital, in the hopes that Krell could maybe do something about that at least.
Remember, General Krell, the entire invasion depends on your battalion.
So it'd be nice if you had a few left in it when you were finished with them. They go to check it out, and yeah, there's some pretty nasty defenses, including tank divisions defending it. Plus the fact that an airbase has air support. I mean, it's kind of baked in.
We'll advance along the central gorge and engage their forces in a full forward assault.
I think we've gone from Civil War general into Zap Brannigan territory here.
Perhaps a closer recon will tell us if there's a more secure route.
Obi-Wan and the other battalions are holding off the enemy right now, while they wait for us to take out this base. We don't have time to look for a more secure route.
All I keep hearing from you is, we don't have the time to do this the right way. We have to do this sloppy and in a way that will most likely fail.
All right, listen up. We'll assemble the squads into 2 divisions.
Group 1 will be in charge of dying. Group 2 will be in charge of burying them. Now, you may prefer Group 2, but understand it's a small group, and they're going to have a lot of work to do, so don't dismiss Group 1 out of hand. The men grouse about this plan.
A few of General Skywalker's plans seemed reckless too.
Okay, all of them, but at least some of them worked. And if you could trust the judgment of a man who has a robot arm thanks to blindly leaping at a Sith Master without thinking, maybe we can trust the judgment of someone who's got both arms and 2 backups. As Fives points out, though, the big difference between Krell's reckless plans and Anakin's reckless plans is that Anakin has no problem joining his troops, even on the front lines, rather than hanging around in the back barking orders and slapping his aide for the tea being tepid. This is actually reflective of something mentioned by 4-star General McChrystal in his book. Leadership is the art of influencing others. It differs from giving a simple order or managing in that it shapes the longer-term attitudes and behaviors of individuals and groups. George Washington's tattered army persisted to ultimate victory. Those troops displayed the kind of effort that can never be ordered, only evoked. Effective leaders stir an intangible but very real desire inside people. That drive can be reflected in extraordinary courage, selfless sacrifice, and commitment. That's the reason that Anakin's troops are loyal in spite of his insane plans, while all save Dogma and Rex are questioning the motives of Krell, with Fives as an ARC trooper especially carrying weight with his dissent. I think that backs up his point nicely. As nasty as some of the creatures they've come across are, lest we forget that eel that got cut up on the Rishi moon, this is a vehicle, as most living creatures do not have weapon mounts on them. And the blasters are doing nothing against those monster things' shields, so they're going to need to use rocket launchers for this particular game of Centipede. Thanks to that, they managed to at least get a bit of initiative together so that they can draw the worm things into a trap. Looks like Thomas the Tank Engine's friends were using ethanol fuel today. Well, as bad as that was, those weren't even the tanks. The tanks show up and begin mopping the floor with Rex's troops even worse than what they've been through so far, if that were somehow possible. Well, Krell is most upset that he couldn't send mostly infantry forces against armored and shielded tanks and win, so he barks at Rex to not fall back and to not expect any reinforcements.
Keep the wounded as quiet as possible. All right, you heard the General. Let's go. You can't be serious.
This makes the charge of the Light Brigade look like a carefully reasoned and flawlessly executed victory by comparison. Fives finally steps in and makes clear to Rex a direct assault is idiotic and doomed to fail. But he has no viable alternative, so in they go, valiantly dying for no good reason. So, after taking their ass kicking for a while, Rex finally comes up with a plan that might work. Send in Fives and Hardcase to infiltrate the base, commandeer a couple of aircraft, and use them to make short work of the tanks. In the face of such an overwhelming advance, Krell responds to this attempt to undermine and defeat the enemy with rage that they are not out there fighting stupidly. If he applied the same reasoning to Jedi techniques, then peace and tranquility would be represented by a punch in the face, with brass knuckles. Blissfully separated from the fury that is Krell, Fives and Hardcase make their way to the base, but there's a sensor wall, and like the game of Operation, you don't want to set off the little red buzzer by touching the side. So, they'll use the tree to get over. Oh, that's not as easy as it sounds, as one of those stupid flying manta things is always there to make life difficult. Luckily, they dispatched that, although there's going to be hell to pay as neither of them has a Numbaran hunting license. They head to the aircraft easily enough, but they're going to need a distraction to get to the craft. That'll work. Luckily, trees spontaneously combust around here all the time. They take out the remaining guard, so now the job is...
I don't think I can do this!
It's going better anyway. I mean, I'd still rather do this than get squashed by one of those tanks. Eventually, they manage to gain control of the craft and come to the rescue, blowing up the baddies with what couldn't be considered grace, but definitely could be considered success. Even Krell is impressed, although not too much.
Luck has smiled on you today, Captain. Consider yourself fortunate.
It wasn't all luck, sir. A lot of men died to take this base.
The price for such victory. Perhaps someday you'll realize this.
Not the way you keep your men alive, you frickin' frog.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!